Right. Welcome to the classification of all living organisms. That is basically what we're going to be doing in this first term. Living organisms. We're going to be looking at how they are classified. Remember, all living organisms. What are living organisms? Let's start there. Living organisms are those organisms that have all the characteristics, or should I say, that have all those characteristics of living organisms, such as being able to respire, being able to reproduce on their own without the help of a host, so forth and so forth. So Robert Whittaker, remember, he was the first one to come up with this five kingdom classification, basically classifying organisms according to their characteristics, similar characteristics. Then, how did he classify organisms? He used those characteristics. Remember, this is grade 10 work. We're doing a bit of revision from grade 10 work and getting into grade 11. He therefore started by saying, okay, what if organisms are no, no, are prokaryotes, and then if organisms are eukaryotes. So organisms are classified either as prokaryotes or eukaryotes. What are eukaryotes? Remember, eukaryotes and prokaryotes are different in terms of their nucleus. Prokaryotes have no true nucleus, and remember, prokaryotes are all of them are unicellular. Prokaryotes have no true, have no complex organelles, but eukaryotes are or have a true nucleus and complex organelles. What is a true nucleus? A nucleus that is covered, or it is membrane bound. It has a membrane around its nucleus, so its DNA is covered in that membrane. Great. So those that are prokaryotes, he said, if you're completely prokaryote, I therefore name you Kingdom Monera. We'll go into detail. Kingdom Monera, those are your bacteria. All right, fine. What about these guys then? These guys now are eukaryotes. Those are the ones that have a true nucleus. So how do we classify them? What is their characteristics? If you are eukaryotic, first things first. If you are eukaryotic and you are unicellular, remember, unicellular meaning that organism is simply made up of one cell. It's one cell only. Therefore, you are almost like Monera, but the difference is that you have a true nucleus. So we will name you Kingdom Protista. An example of these will be your Euglena. A very interesting organism, Euglena. So what about these guys? These guys now are multicellular eukaryotes. Remember, we do not have multicellular prokaryotes. Multicellular eukaryotes. So therefore, what is their story? So multicellular eukaryotes are divided into the following. Either they have the following: a cell wall. So all organisms that are multicellular and they eukaryotes and they have a cell wall, they'll be divided into another group of organisms. But if they are multicellular and they have no cell wall, we end it here. They are called animals. Kingdom Animalia. Remember, we are human beings. We are under the kingdom Animalia. Do we have a cell wall? No. Our cells do not have a cell wall, and we are multicellular beings, so we don't have a cell. So we are under the kingdom Animalia, similar to all other animals. Right. So let me put it here. The characteristic is that there's no cell wall. Great. So what about the ones that have a cell wall? So how do we classify them? They are further classified into two more kingdoms, as we see, to make it five. And how do we classify them? There are two things. Either they make their own food, So they will be phototrophic. Those are the photosynthetic organisms. Or they will be heterotrophic. Remember, organisms that cannot make their own food are heterotrophic. Also, kingdom Animalia are heterotrophic. But what is the difference? That they have no cell wall. But these organisms all have a shared characteristic, is that they have a cell wall on their cells. Now, how can we differentiate the two? Some make their own food, some cannot make their own food. And we all know these organisms that have a cell wall and can make their own food fall under the kingdom Plantae or Plantae, right? So those are your organisms. Kingdom Plantae, those are the plants basically, all living plants under the kingdom Plantae. And then heterotrophic organisms that have a cell wall, we call them fungi. Kingdom fungi. And that is your 5 kingdom classification. So basically, this is a good summary of what we're going to do, but we're going to get into more details. So where are the details? Let's get into it very quickly. Let me get rid of this. Great. So we've looked at the 5 kingdom classification system, and something must bother you when you look at this. There's something that is with us every single day, but it's not classified under each and every one of these should I call them categories of classification. It is not under animals. It can be plants, it can be fungi, right? It is almost unicellular. But it can be bacteria, it can be a protist. What is that? It is a virus, but let's get into it. Viruses cannot be placed under each and any one of those 5 kingdoms because they are classified as both living and non-living. Sounds a bit confusing, right? But they're mostly non-living. So when are they living and when are they not living? Remember, viruses need something called a host, right? It's like when you are hosting a dinner there. You are the host. Mhm. People come feed there at home. People eat and drink there. Born. You are the one providing. They live off of you at that particular point in time. Similar to viruses, they need a host, like COVID. COVID is it's a virus. It needs to live inside a host, which is you as a human being. Good. So they can survive outside, but not for that long. If they stay outside for too long, they die. However, another thing, they cannot respire on their own, cannot reproduce on their own except for when they are in their host cell. Those are viruses. Now let's look at the basic structure. How are viruses? Their structure, basic structure. They are very, very small, smaller than bacteria. Then they have different shapes. Some are spherical, some are rod-like, and some are symmetrical. You did the shapes like your corky, bacillus, and so forth. Then there's a central core in all viruses. There's a central core is where you find your nucleic acids. What are nucleic acids? Nucleic acids basically means DNA and RNA, the hereditary material, right? Remember, since they don't have a true nucleus like all other living organisms, they are covered by a protein coat. Good. They are non-cellular or acellular. You can say when you differentiate them, for example, they love say in exams, differentiate viruses from bacteria. They have no nucleuses, no ribosomes, and no mitochondria. So if you don't have a mitochondria, that means there's no respiration. So it cannot create energy on its own. Interesting. So how does it live? Inside a host. They have no ribosomes. Ribosomes for proteins. Remember, ribosomes are those organelles that basically help in creating proteins in the cell, right? Good. So that's the basic structure of a virus. Viruses will most likely look like this. COVID looks similar to this. Your especially HIV virus looks similar to this. And then there is a virus called a bacteriophage. A bacteriophage looks something like this. Basically, what does it do? Its mode of reproduction is very interesting. So this is the head of a bacteriophage. This is a micrograph of it. They are about to infect a cell, a lot of them. So what they do is like inside they carry that genetic material protected by a protein code. And then when they bound to a host cell, when they bound to a host cell, they release this. Remember, this part is called the tail, and these are tail fibers. Tail fibers. So they attach using their tail fibers, and then they inject their DNA into the host cell. Then they use the host cell's machinery, for example, to replicate, meaning they make new viruses, and then the cell bursts, and then those viruses spread. So basically, that's how a virus will spread inside your body, right? Good. Before we go to other microorganisms, I want to quickly, yes, draw a bacteriophage. A bacteriophage is basically a virus. So that's a model virus that they draw. So this is what you should draw in your book. A bacteriophage. Now, when I say a bacteriophage, this virus is known for infecting bacteria. It is not a bacteria. Let us make the mistake that when you name it bacteriophage, they think, oh, it's a bacteria. Let me draw a bacteria. No, 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 no. It's a virus. Remember, NB, not that bad. It is a virus. Right? Great. Let's draw it. A bacteriophage looks something like this. It will have a head. There's a simplified structure. And then it will have a tail. The tail has tail fibers. Good. Now inside that, it will have these. So let's quickly label it. So all of this will be the head. That is the head of a bacteriophage, a virus. And then its DNA will be protected by a protein code, right? And then inside you'll have your DNA or your nucleic acids. Let's do nucleic acids. And then all of this inside, we call it a nucleic. It's not a nucleus. Remember, it does not have a nucleus. It's not living. We call it a nucleic acid core. And this is the tail. It has a tail, and then it has what we call tail fibers. And that is your virus. Make sure you study the virus properly and then know how to differentiate it from the bacteria. So I'll leave it here for now, and then next lesson we get into the bacteria, kingdom Monera.